there as they continue to go about their everyday lives with those continued bombardments from Russia. As you've explained to us, people living in very cold conditions with strikes on the electricity grid, for example, people having lost so many of their loved ones and relatives. Where do you think they stand now in terms of what they would agree to, in terms of be it territorial concessions, the withdrawal of troops from the Donbass, for example?
I think there is an acceptance by some Ukrainians that some kind of territorial concession may be necessary in order to get a lasting kind of peace. But it's that lasting peace that is really of concern. And without strong security guarantees from the United States and the European allies, it's hard to envision a situation in which, Ukraine would pull back from the Donbass region, but you wouldn't have yet another Russian incursion. I think any kind of giving up of Ukrainian land is a much harder sell for those that have sacrificed limbs and for the family members of those that have died already in this war. That what is it that that we have already fought for? We shouldn't be giving up any kind of territory. So it's going to be a very tricky sell if that is the case, that they do agree on some kind of territorial concessions. It will be a difficult sell for President Zelensky, for the people here in Ukraine.
Samira Hussein there with the very latest from Kiev. As ever, thanks for your reporting. Well, let's get all of the reaction now from the United States. We can bring in our North America correspondent, Sean Dilley, who is with us this evening.
It's
Sean,
not a surprise that White House is late again.
Comments from both leaders in Mar-a-Lago. Have we had any reaction in the United States, specifically with regards to what President Trump had to say, saying that he believed that they were nearing a deal?
I think we'd be a bit early for reaction to something that's just happened, but what we can say is the comment.
Deal, gotta get it done. Too many people dying, and I think both presidents want to make a deal. We believe that it's very important. There's nothing more important, in my book. Very rarely as a nation ever. We don't have that.
The concerning thing is, like, Trump had a call with Putin just before his meeting up with Zelensky, probably getting his marching orders. So hopefully there's a proper peace deal to be discussed here. I just had a good and very productive telephone call with President Putin of Russia prior to my meeting at 1 p.m. today with President Zelensky of Ukraine. The meeting will take place in the main dining room of Mar-a-Lago. Press is invited. It's a bit sus that they're meeting at Trump's private property, but well, he does want to ramp up the value of Mar-a-Lago because when he's out of presidency, he will need to sell that probably. Probably.
So what are we expecting today? Well, we are expecting some fairly robust discussions. President Zelensky indicating in that pre-press conference, speaking to the media, that he didn't think that Russia was showing that it was serious about peace as a result of bombardments that have happened over the weekend. President Trump sort of slightly neutral on that one, saying, well, hang on a minute, Ukraine has also attacked Russia. He said he doesn't say negatively because perhaps they had to attack Russia, but it's a war and they're looking for a solution, President Trump says, where both Ukraine and Russia are serious about peace.
Sean, I want to just talk about the context to all of this.
All right, so
with the US view heading in 2026.
We just ended a brief question and answer session at Mar-a-Lago in which President Trump sounded optimistic, though it was short on details. Many of Trump's remarks have become standard fare in his public comments on Ukraine. What up, Jutta? Trump added that he believes ending the Ukraine war is complicated but not that complicated, and sounded optimistic that both Kyiv and Moscow want to end the fighting. The US president, however, did not offer any timeline or specifics on security guarantees or what territorial concessions he believes might be necessary. Of course he didn't.
Points.
Sounds like he doesn't have a plan again.
On President Trump from Republicans in particular to focus on more domestic issues.
Previously, Trump's statements on what future map of Ukraine might look like have shifted. Just a few months ago, at the UN General Assembly, for example, he stunned many observers by saying he believes that Russia to be a paper tiger and that Ukraine could get all its lost land back. Reporters abruptly asked to leave room. Reporters were briefly allowed into the room where the Mar-a-Lago bilateral is taking place. Inside, Zelensky and members of his delegation were sitting opposite Trump and the US delegation, which included Secretaries of State Marco Rubio, White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wills, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane, why the fuck is Jared Kushner there? Oh my fucking, that pisses me off. Getting your son-in-law there. Steve Witkoff. Well, Witkoff kind of makes sense because Witkoff has been the person who's been visiting Russia. Kushner should have no say in this. Like, Jared Kushner being in the special convoy to Russia and also sitting on the table with Zelensky is just a slap in the face. And Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller was also there. Any opportunity to further question was quickly dashed when Trump abruptly instructed communicators advisors Marco Martin to escort the journalist out to lunch. It is for now unclear if we will hear from Trump or Zelensky again after the meeting, although Trump said he believed they would speak again once it and the call with European leaders has concluded.
Let's just touch on the security aspect of all of this. President Trump was saying there on the steps of Mar-a-Lago.
I presume they want to pressure Zelensky and they don't want the press to be present there. I think that might be the case, that Trump just doesn't want the cameras to be present when he's actually like playing on the same team as Putin. That would be a bad look.
Yeah, it would, and it would be a hard sell to Moscow as well, the idea of any NATO trips, as I say, on the land in Ukraine so close. The point you make about the economy is an important one, but President Trump's position is very different to his predecessor, President Biden, who had passed on quite a lot of money when it comes to aid for Ukraine, as indeed have European leaders. President Trump has taken a much more conservative view on that. I
do feel that it's kind of sus that
so I don't think there's the same.
You first allow the press to be there, and then you shush them off, especially when you say that you want the press is free to participate. President Zelensky is an international hero and a treasure. Oh yeah, I do agree.
And there are still people saying, well, you're still committed, not just with Ukraine, but obviously in Venezuela and Nigeria and all the way around the world. There are an awful lot of people, according to polling, who are
I don't think Trump is going to push too much back on Putin. As I stated previously when I was discussing about like what's happening in Venezuela, Nigeria and Greenland, like Trump has his own interest when it comes to like world politics and territories. So if he pushes too much back to Putin, he can't do that world domination he's planning to do, and he's already doing.
John, thank you for taking the time. I'd like to just talk a little bit about those comments that we heard in Mar-a-Lago, primarily Donald Trump saying that we have the makings of a deal. Important to stress that those comments were before.
That doesn't mean anything that Trump says that we have a makings of a deal. He's been saying that for years.
Of that statement from the US president.
I think that statement reflects his understanding of the situation, and that understanding may be right. I say may because we really don't know the details. We have some ideas, but we don't have a precise understanding of the details on the points agreed thus far between Ukraine and the United States. Axios, which seems to have privileged access to at least someone in the administration who knows what's going on, laid out some terms which...
What's going on, my fellow long-haired brother? We're waiting on to get updates on Zelensky and Trump meeting up. And we were supposed to get like a live feed from there, but for some reason Trump rushed all the reporters out. So we're not getting that live feed, so now we just need to wait until we get some information what's been discussed when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia war. And hopefully there's some sort of a peace plan Not holding my breath though, because we do know that Trump really likes Russia, so. But he promised to end this war like a year ago. So this has been a huge L to Trump that the war hasn't ended for almost full year. Considering how fucking confident he was he's gonna end it in one day.
China, UK, France. If all these things are
But it was another lie,
agreed between
as
the
always.
US and Ukraine, that represents real progress. But I think it's highly unlikely that Putin would accept these things.
And I want to pick your brain more on that, Ambassador, with regards to Vladimir Putin.
Hey, Job Target, thanks for the heart and go popular.
He would be to such an agreement when we'd also had comments from
They have nuclear power, that's why Trump liked them.
Yet having the readout from Washington saying, for example, that a ceasefire.
Well, Ukraine had nuclear power before both Russia and United States decided that Ukraine can't have nuclear weapons
the weaponry finally fall silent.
back in the 90s.
Well, it's worth noting that Zelensky talked about a ceasefire.
But nuclear power shouldn't like allow countries to do what they want.
For a long time, and something which at points of time Trump has said should happen.
In my opinion, no country should have nuclear weapons. That should be like, it's even wild that that's a hot take, that no country should have weapons that can actually destroy the world. It is wild that that is considered to be a really hot take. Ukraine, come on.
Which they want recognized in some fashion. They also want to have far more control.
Ukraine tried to start World War III back in 2024. Russia decided to start the whole thing back in 2014. So let's not twist the history, right?
There's been no change in that.
Just with regards to that relationship,
the whole war would have ended if Russia would have just fucked off to its own territory.
Who has the upper hand there?
That's it.
Well, I think that.
Thank fucking God you corrected yourself.
President Trump can achieve his goal of a durable.
But yeah, like
is to put pressure on the Kremlin because Putin doesn't want that.
The war would still end immediately if Russia fucks off back to its own territory.
Rosneft and Lukoil, Ukraine, two major oil companies, in the middle of October.
And it is wild that we're allowing this to happen as a world. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some blame to the European Union as well, because the European Union took too long to act, and now they're starting to act slowly but surely. But sitting on the decision for a few years is a bit too long when you're thinking about this situation. I do hope that we give Russia a false sense of like peace deal, and after they withdraw their troops and you have that like big peace conference after the war, Putin is thrown into that El Salvador jail together with Kremlin. I don't think Zelensky is a moron, no. Why would you say Zelensky is a moron? Could you give me even one good reason for that? Other than Russia is paying you to say that. Nobody who's watched the whole fucking conflict since 2014. I mean, you haven't followed the war, right? If you hold the big and mighty Russia for many years, that is a W. Yeah, Jutta made a good point. Defend against. Yeah, like Putin is a war criminal and should be charged with crimes against the humanity. That's it. For what he's doing to Ukrainians and what he's doing to Russian citizens as well. Sentenced to life imprisonment or death. Both would be fine. Both Russia and the world would be better off without Kremlin and Putin. Especially Russians. By chance, is that an anime poster? No, this one. It's a Rick and Morty poster. It's all the weird characters of Rick and Morty. My daughter bought it for me, like, I think as a birthday, or no, a Father's Day present a few years ago. Putin wanted more land. Ukraine didn't want to give it up, or it's on Zelensky. No, it's on Putin, you fucking dumbass. What right does Putin have to take other countries' land? Okay, I'm not even like humoring myself into this conversation anymore. Like that's just such a fucking low IQ. Yeah, it looked like anime poster from the angle. No, it's Rick and Morty. It has like all those fucking wacky characters. Rick and Morty characters. It's this one. I usually hang pictures on my wall, but that was bought by my daughter, so it was a nice gift. Well, while we wait for Russia and well, not Russia, but while we wait for Zelensky, and it is a good show. I do agree. That's the Prime Minister of Poland, right? Yeah, Donald Tusk. So while we wait for Donald and Zelensky to open the doors for the presses. See you later. Hey, thanks for dropping by, Jesse. So we can talk about other stuff going on the world. Syria protests live. Deadly clashes erupt as hundreds of demonstrate. Several people have been killed. Yeah. Alawite Syrians took to the streets en masse in central and coastal parts of Syria after a call by Ghazal. Hey, Luis Ruiz, thanks for the follow. An Alawite leader living outside of the country who urged the community to protest killings and discrimination. A security officer was among several people killed in later clashes as the protesters were confronted by pro-government demonstrators and masked gunmen opened fire on security personnel. Dozens of others were wounded. Alawite protesters demanded that the government implemented federalism, decentralization, and the release of detainees from the community currently imprisoned. The Defense Ministry's media office said the army entered the city centers of Latakia and Tartarus with armored vehicles and tanks to calm the situation. The violence comes 2 days after explosive devices were reportedly planted inside an Alawite mosque in Homs city. Authorities haven't publicly identified the suspect yet in Friday's blast. US lift punishing sanctions on Syria. US President Donald Trump has announced the lifting of US sanctions on Syria, providing a major boost to the new Syrian government that came to power after Bashar al-Assad was overthrown in December 2024. The friendship Hey, Jonathan, thanks for the follow. The friendship between the new Syrian president and Donald Trump is kind of interesting because Imagine that not Jessica, that Lord Alcatraz came back in with a different account to write a comment to me because I hide his comment. It's surprising how he's shaking hands with the very same men who were trying to kill him. Oh yeah. And like, he was an Al-Qaeda member. He was a wanted person in the United States. So it's wild that he's now a president and visited the White House. So that's why it's kind of wild that how good of a friend he is. Literally Al-Qaeda member. He was second in command in ISIS. Oh, he was in ISIS as well. Well, kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense. Yeah, gaming H3H3. I thought you were chill, but you're just a liptard who can't face the facts. If you have a border and you can't defend it, you deserve it. I have a message for you, gaming H3H3. How about you go fuck yourself if you protect a genocidal monster that sacrifices his own citizens in world domination beliefs. We live in the year 2025, not in the fucking 1900s anymore, or 1800s even. So if you fantasize about that sort of stuff, yeah, you don't belong in this chat. Thanks. For some reason, you look like Professor Snape. I've heard that a lot. Especially like not the movie version, because in the books Professor Snape was like what, in his 30s, right? But in the movies, of course, it was played by, oh my god, I'm blanking out. What's the actor's name? Why am I blanking out? Alan Rickman, there we go. Need a beer with that air. No. I would grow a beard if I could, but all of my hair growing capabilities are going to my hair, so can't grow a beard with this. Where are you from? Finland. Living in Ireland though. But yeah, the young Severus Snape from the books, yeah, definitely. Because in the movie, Snape looked a bit older than he was actually during that. But I've heard that a lot. It's not the first rodeo that somebody compares me to Severus Snape. Ozzy Osbourne is the way, it's the go-to usually. Hi bro, how are you? I'm doing fine, Aishin. How are you doing? I'm from the US. I don't know if I'm supposed to say I feel bad, but nah, just kidding. There are a lot of good states in the United States that if I got a green card, I would move there. Massachusetts is the best one. That would be my go-to state. If I would move to the United States, it would be Massachusetts. Michigan is another one. Michigan, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, because I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, so that's ice hockey for those who don't know. So Colorado would be another one, which is kind of weird because Colorado is quite different from these states that we listed here. Like, it sucks here. But in Michigan, you have that, there's an island on the coast of Michigan, like a rural island that they don't have any cars or anything like that. I think it was the Michigan island without car. Oh yeah. Mackinac Island. Yeah, Mackinac Island. Yeah. I would love to visit this place. It sounds such a fairy tale place.
Welcome to...
We also have the 3 Sleeping Bears duels. There are good states in the United States. Not everything is shit, even though, like, Europeans might get a different view of things going on in the United States. But especially this island looks like really, really fun. I would love to go there. Of course, they have a lot of horses, and I'm allergic to horses, so that's not a good thing. But of course, they're outdoors, so it's a bit better than being in a stable or something like that. Yeah. That's a very, very European island. Very, very European island. What did I just get? Somalia condemns Israel's recognition of Somaliland as a naked invasion. Somalia's president calls for unity at an emergency joint session on parliament, which declares that Israeli moved null and void. I saw a fucking joint statement from different African countries that they also didn't recognize the forming of Somaliland. If I can, I will send you a brick of fudge. That sounds a brick like a full-size brick of fudge. Somalia's president has condemned Israel's recognition of the breakaway region of Somaliland as a naked invasion, warning that the move threatens to ignite separatist movements elsewhere. Addressing an emergency joint session of parliament on Sunday, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud said Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu has committed the greatest abuse of Somali's sovereignty in the nation's history and referred to Israel as an enemy. I'm encouraging the Somali people to come and to defend the unity and the independence of our country, which is facing this naked invasion, he said. It's a semicircle. Then that's false advertisement. Just kidding. Lawmakers unanimously passed a resolution declaring Israel's recognition as null and void, although the measure is largely symbolic given that Somalia has not controlled Somaliland since its declaration of independence in 1991, which Somalia has never accepted. The resolution warns that individuals or institutions violating Somalia's sovereignty will face legal consequences under the country's penal code and international law. It directed the government to take up the matter with the United Nations, African Union, and Arab League and other religious bodies. Netanyahu on Friday announced that Israel had established full diplomatic relations with Somaliland, describing the move as being in the spirit of the United States brokered Abraham Accords, which normalized ties between Israel and several Arab countries. The announcement made Israel the first UN member state to formally recognize the self-declared state, which has sought international acceptance for more than 3 decades without success. Don't call me a conspiracy theorist, but Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't do favors or anything that he doesn't benefit himself. Hey, thanks for the sub, Jesse. So there must be something more do that. Israel criticized after becoming first country to formally recognize Somaliland an independent nation. You are called a realist. I wonder what's the end goal here. I read that there somewhere here, because I think it was like the cutaway line is somewhere here that would split Somalia in two. A while back, I was called a racist for no reason. To be fair, like, I've been called an anti-Semite as well. But that's because I criticize the government of Israel and people who don't differentiate the religion from the country usually throws around those slurs. I have nothing against Jews or any religion in that matter. So calling me an anti-Semite for criticizing Israel is kind of not correct. I read somewhere that there's a lot of like conspiracy theories why Israel wants Somaliland to split away from Somalia officially, and it's because Yemen is here, and Yemen has been a pain in Israel's thorn for a long time. So if Somaliland becomes an ally with Israel, then they have just a small piece of water between them. People are pricks sometimes. I mean, it's just noise. Noise to me. I know what I am. I know what I stand for, so people can throw those slurs at me as much as they want to, but I always reiterate myself that I don't mind and I don't care about any religion, and I don't discriminate people based on the religion. So I criticize only governments and leaders. Only governments and leaders, not even the citizens of, like, for example, let's talk about United States. It's a good example. I don't think every single American is a piece of shit just because your president is a piece of shit, you know? And I don't think Christians are a piece of shit just because the president of the United States is a Christian. And also, like, if we stick with Christianity, like, not all Catholics are child molesters just because a few Catholic priests were. But I can still criticize Catholic priests and I can criticize the church, but without like condemning or making a blanket statement of the whole religion itself. Too often. I mean, they have access to children, though. The Catholic priest, I mean. They have easy access to children.
Breaking news is coming at the moment. 3 people have been killed, at least 60 others injured at these protests we've been reporting about amongst Syria's Alawite minority. This particular one was in Latakia. There have also been demonstrations in other cities, the cities of Tartus and Homs. The protests, of course, they were called by the head of Syria's Supreme Alawite Islamic Council after a bombing targeting a mosque in Homs during Friday prayers. At least 8 people were killed then, and more than 18 others injured in the explosion in Wadi al-Dahab, which is a majority Alawite neighborhood. We can get straight over now to Damascus live and join Rasul Sardar. So what do we know?
And this was the moment that the US leader welcomed President Zelensky to Mar-a-Lago, to his home there.
They still haven't started to talk.
The gatherings are ongoing. So yesterday, the religious leader of the Alawite communities, Ghazal al-Ghazal, has called people to take the streets starting from 12 noontime up until 5 p.m. local time here. And there we have seen the gatherings, particularly in Latakia and Tartus. These are the coastal cities where the majority of the...
Yeah.
Now he's very serious. I think, I can say that I believe Ukraine has made some very strong attacks also. And I don't say that negatively. I think you probably have to. I don't say that negatively. But I think, he hasn't told me that, but there have been some explosions in various parts of Russia. And it looks to me like, I don't know, I don't think it came from the Congo. I don't think it came from the United States of America. It possibly came from Ukraine, but I haven't asked that question. Maybe I won't bother asking. They're fighting a war, and we'll see what happens. But I believe it's a war that We have two willing parties. We have two willing countries. They want to see it end. Look, the people of Ukraine want it to end, and the people of Russia want it to end, and the two leaders want it to end.
Zelensky looks so fucking dumb.
Let's bring back in Vitaly Shevchenko now, Russia editor for BBC Monitoring. Vitaly, just put this all into perspective for us, if you would. The comments there.
It's a weird moment to make jokes, to be fair. Like, I don't know why Trump does that all the time, but that's a really weird moment to make jokes.
Ukrainian delegation as we speak. How significant is this moment?
Well, on the one hand, the Ukrainians are also sounding a bit more upbeat than normally about the possibility of some sort of deal. Now,
so where the hell is the
in the deal potentially? We don't
meeting itself?
All we know is the 20-point plan.
Yeah, but the 20-point plan doesn't really mean anything. Like, we haven't gotten anything solid. Israel kills over 700 relatives of Palestinian journalists in Gaza. Oh, wow. The Palestinian journalist syndicate says Israel is using collective punishment to cross reporting of its genocidal war in Gaza. Israel has killed at least 706 family members of Palestinian journalists since the start of its genocidal war in Gaza in October 2023, according to the Palestinian Journalists Syndicate. The syndicate's Freedom Committee said in a report released late on Saturday that Israeli forces have systematically targeted the families of journalists as part of what it called a war aimed to silencing Palestinian reporting. The report said the attack represented a deliberate strategy rather than deaths as a result of war. Israeli violence against journalists has evolved to take on a more dangerous and brutal dimension, represented by targeting the families and relatives of journalists in a clear attempt to turn journalistic work into an existential burden of which sons, wives, fathers and mothers pay the price, the union said. Muhammad Allaham, head of the Freedom Committee, said the pattern of attacks from 2023 to 2025 exposes Israel's intent to cross independent reporting in Gaza. Well, we do know that they really don't like journalists. It took them a while to allow foreign journalists to get to Gaza. So them targeting the families of journalists doesn't really, even though we don't really have proper proof of it, but it wouldn't surprise me, to be fair. The blood of the journalist families will remain a living witness to the crime of trying to silence the Palestinian voice, Allaham added. Witness to family killings. The committee said Israeli forces killed 436 relatives of journalists in 2023, 203 in 2024, and at least 67 this year. The deaths continue even after many families were forcibly displaced and sought shelter in tents and makeshift camps, it said. The syndicate cited a recent case near Khan Yunis where the bodies of journalist Hiba Abalada, her mother and about 50 members of the Al-Astal family were recovered nearly 2 years after Israeli aircraft bombed their home west of the city. Hundreds of children, women and elderly were killed because of family members' professional connection to the journalism in flagrant violation of all humanitarian and legal norms. According to the findings, Israeli attacks have repeatedly struck journalists' homes, places of displacement, and areas known to house media workers and their relatives. In some cases, entire families have been wiped out, leaving journalists alive to bear witness to the annihilation. The committee described this as a qualitative shift in Israel's behavior, moving from individual targeting to collective punishment. By turning families into targets, it said Israel aims to intimidate society itself and dry up environment that nurtures the media. Israel's war on Gaza. Journalists killed since October 7, 2003. Almost 300 journalists killed. And even Dave Chappelle commented on this, which is something unique, especially. But I think Dave Chappelle has a unique platform because he can say that. and he won't get cancelled about it. But he was getting criticism for participating in Saudi Arabia, and also criticism because there was an American journalist that was killed in Saudi Arabia by the Crown Prince. So Dave Chappelle jabbed back and said that there's almost 300 journalists killed in Israel. So he didn't know we were counting killed journalists, which was a good ending to that that joke completely. Because it's not a joke. It's kind of serious how many journalists die by reporting genocide. Not a surprise though. If a country wants to hide their genocidal acts, journalists would be the #1 target. If you don't want the world to see the atrocities, the death, the destruction, you target journalists, and that's exactly what Israel has been doing. Beyond the death toll, the syndicate warned of severe psychological harm. Journalists who survived after losing children, partners, or parents now face trauma, family breakdowns, and crushing guilt, and many have been forced to flee or suspend their work under the weight of Israel's continued violence. Hello, bro. What up, Ansari? Over the past year, Israel killed several journalists in Gaza in targeted assassinations, most notably Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif, falsely claiming that they are members of Hamas. They are among nearly 300 journalists and media workers killed in Gaza during the war over 26 months, and averaged about 12 journalists a month. According to SYRIA, a monitoring website named after Al Jazeera's veteran correspondent Shirin Abdu Akleh, who was killed in the occupied West Bank in 2022. Media freedom groups have condemned the Israeli attacks on journalists, but the killings have proceeded with impunity. Israel has never arrested or charged any of its soldiers for killing journalists. You could be another Ozzy Osbourne if you tried. I don't know if I want to take as much drugs as Ozzy Osbourne, but yeah. I could go, well, I don't have that good of a singing voice, so I don't know if I could like replace Ozzy, but I could play with Black Sabbath though. I do play guitar. That would be really fun to play with Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler, and it would be freaking cool to be able to play with them. Or just with the Ozzy Osbourne band. You know, some of the old guitar players. Like Zach and Jackie Lee and even Gus. Gus was a good guitar player for Ozzy as well. But that's like the scummiest of the scummy moves is to like target journalists. And that's when you know that your government is doing something shady, if you need to target journalists. Imagine that. You're doing your job, you're reporting all the atrocities that's happening, and you die because of that. Because the government wants to hide their actions. If the government of Israel didn't have anything to hide, they wouldn't need to target the journalists. Oh yeah, it's 100% targeting. Their hit rate on journalists is a bit too good to be accidents, all of them. And considering they have one of the most sophisticated like military machines in the world, thanks to the United States, all of the actions and all of the destruction and all of the killings they've done, they're no accidents. They have the means and the resources to avoid civilian casualties if they wanted to. But that's also a word we need to put some weight on, because they don't want to avoid civil casualties. They don't want to avoid civilian deaths. They could do that. But they don't want to. Oh.
and Volodymyr Zelensky discuss and agree today, it will have to be sent to Moscow for consideration and approval. And yeah.
For a second there I thought that Aussie bot is broken. Oh no.
They will be strong enough, and presumably your concern is that President Putin would come back for more.
Absolutely, because what we see right now today is that NATO member states avoid any situations that there could be direct contact between NATO troops and Russia.
I wonder if United States is also gonna recognize Somaliland.
We have the best security guarantees presented. Russia breaks its promises once again, as it does many times.
Oh, who is this guy?
NATO troops are ready to fight Russia, to bomb Moscow? I doubt.
Let me ask you this. Do you think President Zelensky would sign off on something that he doesn't believe is robust enough?
We are very grateful to the US administrations that even after Christmas,
they should have brought Klitschko with them.
They keep focus on Ukraine. It's crucial for us to understand that United States and our other great allies, including UK, are with Ukraine. But from today's conversation, I see that there is no kind of fast result. Whatever is said
they should have
Trump.
brought Klitschko with them.
For January, are scheduled two working groups under Russia-United States aegis to talk about security and economy. There are no clear deal on the table, just 20 points to be discussed and to be agreed. But I think that Russia simply manipulates Trump and takes its time to attack Ukraine again and again. They believe that those negotiations will last.
Was it Volodymyr Klitschko or was it
which Russia hopes to occupy Ukraine?
The other Klitschko that...
So Volodymyr, of course, we are entering 2026.
Which Klitschko was the fucking mayor of Kiev? Ah, yeah, Vitaly Klitschko.
This year? This coming year?
Every year we hope that this is the last
both
year
former
of the war.
boxers.
And every year
yeah, they should have brought the Klitschko brothers to Mar-a-Lago to put some pressure on those fucking
and there is no kind of sign of changing policy of Russia.
Soft dicks on the other side of the table. You know, Rubio and Hexet and others.
Russia is obsessed with the idea of restoring Russian empire.
That's the crew you want when you go in for a peace negotiation. It's like both of the Klitschko brothers with you.
For Kremlin. It's not about Putin, it's about Russian imperialism.
Well, just to say that you can scan the QR code on your screen now for our BBC News live page with the very latest reporting from our correspondents covering that meeting in the US and reaction from around the world.
Trump calls his boss to get his marching orders before the meeting with Zelensky. This is a standard operation procedure for Trump. Fuck Putin, fuck Trump, say a few prayers for or have some positive thoughts for Zelensky. He's gonna need them. I do agree. As I stated earlier, like there's a reason why Trump doesn't want the cameras there. Because this is making Trump look really bad. He promised to end the war in one day.
I think you could sit outside and have some food. Would you like to have food, or do you consider that a bribe? And therefore you cannot write honestly, or therefore you have to write a bad story. Okay, because if you'd like, would you like something to eat at this time?
No,
yes or no? You can speak. Yes, sir. Yes? Okay. Margot, take them outside, tell the chef, serve them a little lunch, okay?
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
That should guarantee good stories, but it won't. They'll only get worse. So go out of their way to make them worse. He gave us a hamburger. We have to make them in.
Alex, thanks. Press.
Okay.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Are you okay? Is everyone fine? Margot, if you would.
I wonder if they're even gonna get anything done today. Trump is probably gonna hype about his tariffs and I don't know, bombing of Nigeria or something like that. There was a huge storm in the Nordics during yesterday. Like my entertainment yesterday evening was following the power outages in Finland. Like there was like 180,000 people without electricity or... What up, Cody? Peace deal between Ukraine and Russia is good. It is good. Of course, peace deal between Ukraine and Russia is good. But the only peace deal that it should be is like Russia fucks off back to its own territory. And bye, Cody. Yeah, so Russia should fuck off back to its own territory. Ukraine gets all of its land back. And then Russia pays for Ukraine's rebuild. For all the destruction that Russia caused. That's the peace deal. Nothing less is playing to Putin. And we shouldn't give aggressors and we shouldn't give those fucking psychopaths any reward for illegally seizing sovereign nations' territories. Both countries should have elections. Ukraine needs to get rid of the doubts of corruption that they have at the moment, and also the Russian citizens deserve free and open elections without any opposition party leaders or party members dying suddenly of fall damage or poison damage in a different country. Unfortunately, we know that that's not possible in Russia because falling out of the window is the most common way of dying if you're the opposition to Putin. And you don't have any levitation powers in Russia. You can't blink yourself into safety like in World of Warcraft. Alive but shamed. 3 killed in Sweden as major storm sweeps across the country. What about Finland? So I think we're not gonna get anything special today. We're probably gonna get everything after they have lunch and such. But did anybody die in Finland because of the storm? I don't think. There's still 40,000 houses without electricity in Finland. Oh, we have statistics here, so we have numbers. So yesterday, around the time that I was going to sleep, there was 180,000 without electricity, which was like around 11:30 our time, which is like 25 past midnight in Finland. No, this was 10:30, sorry. And then slowly but surely, people started regaining electricity. But it was quite bad. One of the worst that I've seen in a while in Finland. But at least nobody died. No, nobody died. Or maybe they didn't find it yet, because they might be in Lapland or somewhere. Storm Johannes. A third person has died in Sweden after a powerful winter storm swept across Nordic countries, causing travel disruptions and power outages. Oh my yeah. Oh my yeah, the Rovaniemi airport. Yeah, the Rovaniemi airport was completely fucking packed. This is like the tourist attraction in December. So I saw some wild videos from inside the airport. People were losing their shit. And no wonder they lose their shit, because like you can't really prepare for this. I wonder if we can actually find any proper videos from them. Apparently we can. Romania? No, Finland. Rovaniemi is a city in Finland. I hope it was -20. I really fucking hope it was -20. Yeah, that would suck. Being stuck on an airport and especially without a bench. If you have a bench or somewhere to sit, it's not as bad. But if you have to stand like for hours and hours and hours, yeah, goddamn, that would be the worst. 20 flights were transferred from Saturday to Sunday. Hey, Vesna, thanks for the like. There were hundreds of passengers. Even on Sunday today, that were still waiting for the flights. But it hit Sweden a bit worse than in Finland. Although there were less houses apparently without electricity.
I'm Helena Humphrey, good to have you with us. President Trump says we have the making of a deal at the start of crucial talks.
Shut up. Tens of thousands of homes in Sweden, Norway and Finland have been left without power as a result of the storm. In Sweden, more than 40,000 homes were affected by power outages and numerous rail services were cancelled, Swedish news agency TT reported. Several flights, rail and ferry services across parts of the Nordic nations have been cancelled. Roads and rail services has also been disrupted due to the storm conditions. In Norway, Nordland region, one of the most northerly counties in the country, the fire department responded to more than 200 weather-related incidents, broadcasted on RK reported. Storm Johannes cut power to around 23,000 homes in Nordland and a further 9,000 were without electricity in the inland region, according to NRK. In Finland, the storm known there as Hannes, I don't know why it wasn't also Johannes, but yeah, Hannes is fine, subsidized on Sunday morning, but had left more than 60,000 homes without power, according to the public broadcaster Yle. And anyone who's ever lived in Finland know that it is actually quite rare that a winter storm cuts so much power, unless they've all completely fucked their infrastructure. We've had some bad winter storms in the past, but I think these numbers are higher than previously. And I heard rumors that it might hit us here in Ireland at some point. Nah. Looks good. Doesn't look that bad. It's a bit chilly, but nowhere near do we have like a winter storm here. I knew that. We have a nice fucking ocean and land between us. Flights at Kittila Airport in northern Finland were grounded after heavy winds pushed a passenger jet and a smaller plane off the runway and into a bank of snow. God damn. Did it? Apparently, yes. And we have the film. A passenger plane and a small aircraft were pushed to the snow bank in Kittila. Nobody got hurt. Oh, I would have wanted to see the video of that though. And it wasn't even a small plane, like an 210 to 300. This is a small plane. So those were some proper winds we had. The Swiss air jet carrying about 150 passengers had just landed from Geneva and was taxiing when it veered off the paper said. That would be a traumatizing situation. Being on an airplane and all of a sudden you feel that you're going sideways instead of like forwards.
Think that President Putin is very serious about peace. I think the other thing that really struck me about those comments was when President Trump talked about the economic potential in Ukraine. Remember that there are two possible options on the table when you're talking about the hotly contested Donbas region. One, of course, is the preferred option by President Trump, is to create a free economic zone. But that would require Ukraine and Russia to both withdraw their
Donald
troops
Trump, the
from
newly
entire
installed president
region.
of the United States.
And that may be a hard sell for Russia, and of course not a very difficult sell for Ukraine as well. The other option, of course, is to create a demilitarized zone exactly where the battle lines are, which is the preferred option for President Zelensky.
You mentioned there the prospect of territorial concessions, Samira. We know that, of course, one of the other thornier aspects to all of this is security guarantees. What would Ukrainians need to feel safe if there was a conclusion to this war, to believe that were Russia to try and come back and take further territory, that they would be sufficiently protected?
I think there's a lot of skepticism when it comes to this idea about security guarantees. Speaking with people here, they say that they have had these security guarantees before, that they were told if there's going to be another Russian invasion that other countries would come in and help, and they didn't really see that happen. So President Zelensky is quite firm on making sure that he wants to get some real concrete...
Yeah, that's like both is correct. Like there's been security guarantees from allied nations and security guarantees from Russia not to do more aggressive stuff. Both of those promises have been broken in the past. Of course, as Finns know, that any guarantees that a Russian leader does, you can't really trust them 100%. It's more like, you know, a serial killer promises not to kill anymore. Would you trust that? No, you would always be a bit skeptical. It's the same thing with when you hear a Russian leader saying that, yeah, we'll play nice from now on. And history shows otherwise, so you're always a bit skeptical about that until they prove otherwise. Unfortunately, for everyone, they have proven in the past that they are not to be trusted 100%. So maybe this time is a bit different.
Early overnight and into this morning, we saw the southern and eastern part of Ukraine also get hit by Russian drones. And of course, there was
the Trump just wants to bow down to Putin. 100%.
There are thousands of people.
I wonder if I can find a proper picture of Trump.
Electricity, and it is quite cold outside, and it is another dark and cold winter for so many Ukrainians. They are war weary. They do want this war to come to an end. And although President Zelensky very much wants to see a ceasefire and then to continue with negotiations, that's not at all what Russia has in mind.
Samira Hussein there, our correspondent in Kiev. Samira, thanks a lot. Now, some countries as Samira was just mentioning there, the Coalition of the Willing, that's a group of Kiev allies who say that their aim is to secure a durable peace in Kiev. They expressed willingness to put boots on the ground in the country in the event of a ceasefire. Well, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has been reacting to that idea, and he warned that any European troops would be what he called a legitimate target. In an interview with the Russian news agency TASS, which was published on the news agency's site earlier today, Lavrov told European leaders there is no need
oh my God, that's even better.
Attacking anyone, but he adds that should anyone consider
this is probably the best picture I've ever seen.
A devastating blow.
Gen Z are terrified of capital letters.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defence for European and NATO Policy, Jim Townsend. Welcome to you, sir. Thanks for being with us here once again on BBC News. To begin with, your thoughts.
Wingnut Manenby, Donald Trump has blamed Ukraine for being invaded by Russia, much to Mad Vlad Putin's delight. Okay, that's fucking hilarious. Is it wrong of me to like this picture a bit too much?
Well, I don't always want to be a downer.
If Epstein was alive still, he probably would have that picture framed. If Epstein wasn't killed. I mean, killed himself. Bulgaria prepares to join the Eurozone amid fears of Russia-backed disinformation. Even though if you go to X and you search Bulgaria, there's a lot of Russian bots saying that the Gen Z protest that they had that forced the government to resign was to fight the European Union and also to join Euro. That for some reason Bulgarians don't want that, which is untrue. But of course, X is a platform of disinformation from bots, and Elon Musk doesn't give a fuck about that. And also because Elon Musk also hates the European Union, but Bulgaria is still gonna join Euro. My great-grandmother would turn over in her grave seeing the president bowing to Russia. Yes. I think I'm also like not just bound to Russia, like bow to Russia. Like let's say Russia never, let's play a hypothetical. Let's play a game that Putin never became the dictator of Russia and never gave up his power. And he's actually looking after the citizens of Russia and also made Russia a civilized Western society. And they have, now they announced that they would have 100% renewable energy and they gave up all of their nuclear powers. I would also probably, in that hypothetical utopian scenario, I would bow Russia as like the leader of the world, showing how it's done. Unfortunately, we don't live in that reality. And in this reality, I agree with you. Like, it is wild that the President of the United States is so much willing to suck the ass of this ex-KGB agent, dictator of Russia. But he's made a lot of money out of Russia, so why not? Balkan country will become 21st country to adopt EU currency, with policymakers hoping move will boost economy. Bulgaria is preparing to adopt the euro in January amid fresh domestic political turbulence and fears that Russia-aligned disinformation is deepening distrust of the new currency. That's also spearheaded by Elon Musk. Like, that's one thing I want to make clear, that the reason why that disinformation is a huge fucking issue in Twitter at the moment is because Elon Musk hates EU and he allows and even boosts those disinformation accounts, those bot accounts from, well, Russia-funded bot accounts that spread those lies that Bulgaria doesn't really want to join Euro and the citizens don't trust the EU bureaucrats in Brussels and like all of that bullshit. They're still gonna join Euro because the citizens are smarter than those fucking bot army that trying to lobby against EU. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, has said that thanks to the Euro, Bulgaria will have more trade, more investments, and more quality jobs and real incomes, which is true. Unified currency does all of those things. It just does. Also, Schengen does that. Also, the trade deal when joining EU does that. Everybody's under the same banner. It's easier for businesses around Europe to do business with each other because of EU. So there's a lot of benefits of EU. One of the best benefits about EU is the regulation of foreign countries outside of EU zone. For example, tech companies from the United States need to have those, they need to sign the DSA, the Digital Service Act. And if they don't, well, fuck off then. That's my solution. Like, if you don't want that, you could just fuck off. On recent visit to Sofia, the Economic Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis said the move was key at the time of Russia's war with Ukraine, rising geopolitical tensions and global economic uncertainty that underline the importance of European unity. Most European countries, including Bulgaria, are far too small to shape today's world on their own. They only stand to gain necessary weight by fully integrating into the European Union large political and economic structures, he said. Yes. That's why, for example, smaller countries like Ireland and Finland and, for example, Bulgaria, it is important to have a unified Europe because there's strength in numbers. Despite the touted benefits, however, Bulgarians are far more from united. A recent survey by the Ministry of Finance showed that while 51% of citizens were in favor of joining the single currency, 41% were against it. A fight broke out in the parliament in June when the euro entry was approved by the European Commission, with MPs from the far-right pro-Russian Revival Party blocking the podium. Petar Ganev, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Market Economics, a think tank based in Sofia, said the division on the euro was symptomatic of broader political tension. Trump bends over for the highest bidder. Yeah, like whatever makes him more money and his family more money. He doesn't care about morals. He doesn't have morals. Whatever makes him the most money and whatever provides his family the most wealth. The fear is the training of the Bulgarian industry and youth that has been seen across most of the East. But at least there's now a chance. That was the same fear that the Finns had. That was the same fear that the Irish had. All of the countries, when they're joining Euro, have had the same fears. And none of the fears have come true. I'm not saying that EU and Euro is a perfect thing. Fuck no. Far from it. But it is a really good thing. A 4-year political crisis marked by 7 parliamentary elections and widespread corruption have eroded trust in the government and contributed to the polarized political climate. Early in December, the government of the former Prime Minister TRUMP-ZELENSKYY resigned after less than a year in office after weeks of mass anti-corruption protests across the country. Oh yeah, we covered those when they were happening live. Although the political drama is unlikely to hamper the adoption of the euro, many fear prices will spike during the transition, and with an average monthly salary of about £1,100, this is not something many Bulgarians could afford. I can tell something from experience, like in Finland, that exact same thing happened. So it's not uncommon. Like when the Finnish mark was changed to euro back in 2001, that exact same thing happened. The Irish and Finns had much stronger economies than Bulgaria. I understand the importance of the bloc, but you can't say that the original members don't benefit from the capitalization poorer members. Yeah. Well, the bigger member countries benefit a lot, 100%. But it has got a lot better since, for example, when Finland joined the euro back in 2001. Like, the original member countries benefited a lot more. And it's a bit more spread out at the moment than it was 20 years ago. Europe is on its way down. I don't think so. Do I need to read the whole thing? Cause like economic downturn, immigration, low wages, unemployment will decrease freedoms and usher even more authoritarian regimes resulting in civil war. Nope. 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 Lower wages. Nope. Unemployment will decrease. You mean employment will decrease? Freedoms and usher. No. But yeah, like when Finland transitioned to euro, it was literally the prices went quite a lot up. There was a few years of suffering, but then all the wages and everything came up back up. So then it was quite nice. But Europe isn't on its way down, though. Anyone who says Europe is on the verge of civil war is just uneducated, though. I would even argue that the United States is closer to a civil war than Europe, and even the United States is far from a civil war. The economic centers are leaving Europe towards the east and south, where there is much more potential for economic growth. I see what you mean, but Finland had a strong educational system allowing for competition in services. Bulgaria, yeah, I do, yeah. I'm not saying it's not gonna hurt Bulgaria, my fancy sauce. I 100% like Finland and Bulgaria aren't comparable, and it is probably gonna sting a lot more in Bulgaria than it did in Finland and Ireland. For example, my company that I work for, we have people working in Bulgaria, and when we're talking about wages and the cost of livings and everything, it feels so criminal to have that discussion with them. I feel like really, really bad like having those discussions, because the cost of living is almost the same, but the wages are just a marginal fraction of what I get paid. And it's the same company still. So 100% it's not gonna be an easy transition. In Asia and Africa, as the future, Europe has little to no resources and has always taken advantage of the global south to maintain their own economies with raw materials used in production to trade. Yeah, the services that European companies and European countries provide, especially if the US decides to go on a trade war with the European Union is just going to transfer their target audience from the United States, which is not even the biggest one, towards Asian countries. But Europe in general isn't doing that bad. Like all of that statements about like where was it? That Europe is going on its way down. It has no weight. Yeah, we have immigration. Yeah, we've always had immigration. Is that a reason why we're going down? No. If you only read Musk's tweets, then yeah, I can get where you get that European has an immigration problem. Low wages depends on the European country. Europe is not one big country. For example, the Irish wages are quite nice. But then again, like Bulgaria, they don't really have that. What do you think about the current crisis in the European automotive industry? It has been an ongoing thing for fucking 20, 30 years. like European car manufacturers. They didn't adapt. And I think, like, to be fair, it's a bit late to react to that anymore. Services will soon be obsolete with AI, and production will be more profitable in the countries which have their own natural resources rather than Europe, which has hardly any. Europe has a lot of natural resources, though. Digital services, maybe. Physical, no. Did we get already the meeting start? No. Services will soon be obsolete. The US has deliberately bankrupted Europe, though, through the Ukraine. Europe isn't bankrupt, though. And Europe isn't dependent on US oil. Why do you think US is trying to steal Venezuelan oil and Nigerian oil? Where do you get your... Where are your sources? Are your sources completely Elon Musk? Europe is being enslaved to US policies. Is your sources Elon Musk? The core issue with Europe is the focus on carbon emissions and not self-sufficiency in core industries and energy. I think a lot of, like, for example, the countries that are islands and, like, close to coastal regions, I think those countries are not using their natural resources well enough. And also, there was that segment, 20-year segment, that European countries were against nuclear power, which made us more depending on Russian gases and energy from Russia. So I think we need to revamp the nuclear programs again to generate more nuclear power. I know a lot of countries are doing that already. But for example, in Ireland, like, Ireland is so fucking dependent in energy coming from from the United Kingdom, even though we have really good natural resources here ourselves that we could actually use renewable energy a lot. I think focusing on the wind, yeah. But wind provides wind causes cancer, according to Donald Trump. So Germany closed several nuclear plants. Nuclear is the only clear way forward for emission. Yeah. I do agree. Of course, there's countries like Norway and Iceland and Sweden and even Finland and Ireland and... Okay, I'll count United Kingdom as well. That would benefit a lot from hydro and wind energy because we have a lot of it. We have a surplus of, like, resources to provide us almost, well, unlimited amount of hydro and wind energy that could provide enough electricity. But there are old ways of thinking things. Yes, but offshore wind causes whales to beach. Hydro, though, can be problematic. That is true. But that's why nuclear, especially those smaller nuclear reactors, would be a good thing. What do you call them? They're not. The Finnish translation is mini nuclear power plants, but nuclear power, 100%. It's not that big of a boogeyman anymore. We live in the year 2025. And that could rocket us away from Russian dependency, which is good. Because you don't want to give that much power to a country that's willing to abuse it. If we can just figure out Gulf fusion. I swear to God, if you... Did you watch the new Fallout TV series? About Gulf fusion. I was just thinking about it before the stream that I wonder when the next episode is coming out. But Gulf fusion is a hot topic in Fallout TV series as well. But I do agree. But making a blanket statement that no, like just in general. I don't know if you watched that at all, but they made a really good Fallout TV series. And there's the second season going on at the moment. And I was a bit skeptical when I heard that this is coming. But it is actually really fucking good. And I'm a huge fan of Fallout. So that's why I was so skeptical when they decided to touch Fallout and try to make it a TV series. But it is fucking awesome. And this is not an advertisement for the series. But if you like post-apocalyptic stories or fiction, 100% recommend Fallout TV series. You don't even need to be a fan of the game. I think you can see, like, my wife watched it with me, and my wife isn't a real fan of Fallout.
Okay.
Here's a brief reminder of what's in Zelensky's 20-point peace proposal that he's currently discussing with Trump administration at Mar-a-Lago. Zelensky wants Ukraine to receive NATO Article 5 style future security guarantees to deter any future Russian aggression and for Ukraine to maintain its armed forces at their current level of 800,000 troops. He also wants a precise date for Ukraine to assume EU membership. I don't understand why that's such a big deal. We could just suck Ukraine to EU. Ukraine has a lot of good natural resources that would benefit like neighboring countries. Wink, wink. The plan also calls for 800 billion in aid to rebuild Ukraine's infrastructure and post-war economy. I'm not pro-Putin, but did we honestly expect anything other than what this peace deal looked like? Pessimistically, no. Optimistically, fuck yeah. But there's a saying in Finland. More like hoped, yeah. There's a saying in Finland, pessimisti ei pety, which is like, a pessimist will never be disappointed. I still have my hopes of that once the war is over, there is a country that's gonna arrest Putin and put Putin to trial for war crimes and crimes against humanity. I would love that. To make an example of like, don't fucking disturb the peace. We should be working towards peace, not towards fucking war. How frogs went from right-wing meme to anti-ice protest symbols. In America, we say fill one hand with hope and the other with shit and see which feels faster. Sounds about right. That's even more pessimistic than the same we have in Finland.
I think we're in final stages of talking, and we're going to see. Otherwise,
I don't believe they are at final stages of talking because, as I stated earlier already, that Trump has said this many times that we're really close to a deal. We're like 90% there, and we're in the final stages. And it's been a year. It's been a year already. Still nothing. Still nothing after a year. And it was supposed to take a day. Of course, like everyone knew that. Everyone knew immediately that it's gonna take more than one day. But then again, we kind of hoped. It's cute they think that we are even going to have an election. The orange pedophile won't be leaving the White House on his own. He was ready to let Mike Pence die to stay in power last time. Nothing about this administration is normal. Which party will win the US House next year? I don't know. The midterms are going to be interesting. The midterms are going to be super interesting next year. Israel's recognition is clearly backfiring. This is only the beginning in Porama, Avdal state at the Bab al-Man, but the choke point, the Samaroon tribe came out in large numbers holding Palestinian flags. Hard to negotiate when you can't stop giving ground. It is baffling to me that the aggressor is going to get what they want. They're going to get the territories that they stole, and they are going to get more. And that is wild. But then again, that history has shown that that's happened before. So it's not anything new. I agree, but this has been the way of the world until like 5 minutes ago. True. Of course, I'm a bit hopeful that at some point during my lifetime, we can evolve to, you know, not start new wars and not try to steal other people's land and live as equals, not as enemies. You know, but I know that that's wishful thinking. Who is this person? Why did she walk in front of the camera? Don't do that. Thailand, Cambodia signed a ceasefire deal. War is too profitable. War never changes.
ភាគីទាំងពីរយើងបានឯកភាពគ្នាទៅលើបទឈប់បាញ់បន្ទាន់មួយដែលនឹងចូលជាធរមានចាប់ពីថ្ងៃនេះនៅ
Orange juice and toothpaste is better than chocolate.
ម៉ោង 12 ថ្ងៃត្រង់ស្របថ្ងៃទី 27 ខែធ្នូឆ្នាំ 2025 នេះតទៅក្រោយពីបទឈប់បាញ់នេះយើងត្រូវបានអនុវត្តឲ្យបានពេញលេញក្នុងរយៈពេល 72 ម៉ោងដែលក្នុងនោះអស់រយៈពេល 151 ថ្ងៃមកហើយអ្វីដែលតាមរយៈនៃបទឈប់បាញ់នៅថ្ងៃនេះគឺនឹងបើកផ្លូវឲ្យបងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋភៀសសិទ្ធដែលមានលំនៅឋានតាមតំបន់ព្រំដែននេះអាចមានលទ្ធភាពក្នុងការត្រឡប់ទៅព្រំដែននេះและประเด็นที่สำคัญที่สุดใน Joint Statement ฉบับนี้คือให้ทั้งสองฝ่ายยังคงกำลังทหารในพื้นที่ระดับปัจจุบัน
โดยต้อง
Good
ไม่
talking
มี
with
การ
you,
เคลื่อน
my
ย้าย
fancy sauce as well.
หรือ
Have a great night.
เสริมกำลังเพิ่มเติมเข้าหากัน และไม่มีการโจมตี
Still nothing happening. All right, I think that's going to be enough. We had a lot of discussions about other news. Unfortunately, I have a work day tomorrow, so I need to start preparing for that as well. Okie dokie. I'm probably going to come online tomorrow because I missed so many days during the Christmas time when I was sick. So I just need to get that time back. Thanks for everyone joining. We'll see you guys tomorrow.